Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Sarah Wild, bringing you the voices and stories of jazz from Durham, North Carolina. Michael and Hal, thank you both for joining Six Count this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
And we're here at Chatham Street Records, an indie record label in Carrie and Hal's home recording studio. Now, during the pandemic, I think many of us sought creative ways to make the most of our living spaces. And so was that the case for you, Hal, or what made you decide to open up a music production company? It looked like earlier this year.
You know, like a lot of things in music, it was a series of fortunate or unfortunate events, depending upon how you want to think about it. Every year, at the end of the year, like a lot of married couples, my wife and I kind of look at, okay, what's going on for the next year? Where are we at with our money? What are we going to do? What are we going to keep doing the same? What are we going to change up? And you saw some of my wife, Lindsay Chester's artwork on the way in. And she wanted to lean more into her artwork. And I wanted to lean more into my music. And I registered the paperwork at the very end of last year. And at the time, we were running an online newspaper for Carrie that we founded 12 years previously.
We being Hal,
me and Lindsay.
Lindsay, not me.
me and Lindsay.
I was not involved.
12 years ago when we were running this, and we had a full-time writer who came in 5 days a week. And I don't know, we slipped away to go to Mexico. And we came back and she said, I've been offered a job by CBS 17.
Oh, wow.
So we said, well, I guess we're going to really lean into that art and music thing we started in January. And that's how we got here. But in terms of working at home, I've been an independent producer since the late 90s. So I always liked the idea of, you know, using your space in different ways. And like a lot of, you know, I'm a gym rat, so I hang out at the gym. I'm a studio rat. I like to hang out in the studio. And when the spirit moves you, you plug some stuff in and make a record.
And Michael, you joined Hal pretty soon since you started producing here officially as Chatham Street Records. So can you share about how you two met, which I understand was quite a while ago, and decided to work together on music and then later in this production capacity?
Prison.
No.
Partners in crime.
We met because my daughter and Hal's daughter are the same age and they were going to the same elementary school, was it? Or junior? Middle school?
No, it was Davis Drive Elementary.
Was it?
Davis Drive.
Well, at any rate, they were going to the same school. They were like, they got to know each other and they were just talking and like, yeah, my dad's in a band and so, oh yeah, my dad plays piano, and somehow they got us kind of connected. Somehow that's how I'm remembering it.
No, that's not how I remember it. I remember, so Zoe would come over.
Right.
And they were supposed to do their homework before they could like fool around. But that wasn't working out. And there was some acrimony at some point. And I was like, who's your father? What's his number?
Yeah.
Because I'm from New York. Who's your father? What's his number? And you came over and you saw I had a Guild Polaris, a nice guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in the corner. And Michael, innocently enough, Dr. Michael, PhD of music, is like, oh, you play a musical instrument? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, you know. I'm in a blues band, and we're having a show this Saturday out on my back porch. Want to come over? And that's kind of how.
That's how it started. So yeah, Hal, at the time he had a group, a blues band called the Fifth of Blues. And I don't know if Larry ever hears this, he'll say it was his band, right? I mean,
Larry doesn't listen to podcasts.
That's true. We don't have to worry.
Way too elitist for Larry.
It was technically, the leader of the group was Larry O'Connor, very fine blues guitar player and singer.
Larry.
We call him Lonesome Larry.
Lonesome Larry.
Everyone in the band had a nickname.
No, but Larry's really... He's called that everywhere.
Oh, really?
The rest of us were just made up.
Oh, see.
No, he has real cred because he is Lonesome Larry.
Yeah, it fits. anyway, it was a good band. I went over and we had a good time, and then somebody invited me to, I don't know, maybe Larry, hey, you want to be in the band? Or, I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Because at the time I wasn't really doing much. I moved fairly recently to Cary, and I didn't know that many people at the time. And we played for what? I don't know, 5 years?
6 years.
5 or 6 years. Had a good run.
That was 2007, probably.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. And and then we started just kind of on the side. Michael would come over and we would play non-blues material.
Like what?
Oh, I mean, one of our first recordings is us doing kind of a hillbilly shuffle version of Pink Floyd.
That's right. The lunatic is on the grass. Lunatic. Yeah, it was like, stuff like that, or Neil Young tunes. So,
and that was fun. And it was sort of instant karma with the music. And then we started playing out for a few people, and they were like, get out of my house, pretty much. And so we started to play in bars.
I think there was a point there where the blues band kind of,
imploded.
Sadly, the drummer met his untimely death. And that was kind of it for the band, I think, right? I mean, that was pretty much...
Well, the band that blew up before...
I guess.
Before our good friend Gary Cadell passed away.
I guess it had, I guess.
But, we did mention to Sarah that it was a blues band, so it sort of implied that it was going to explode under its own weight at some point.
Yeah, it's hard to keep a band together no matter what, especially a blues band. But
as I used to say to the guys, we play the blues. You don't have to live the blues.
Well, then what would you sing about?
I mean, we all. I think we all actually. This is a serious question. I think we all have, our own versions of the blues. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, rich man, poor man, lady, anybody can have that. That's what's universal about the blues, and that's where you get it. But you don't have to go around like one of our bandmates once called me. I'm not going to say who.
Okay.
It's not Michael.
Okay.
Called me the night after a gig, no hello, and was just said, "Where am I?" I'm like, I don't know. Can you describe the locale? And he said, well, there's trees in a road, woods. I can't really see much else. I'm like, no, then I cannot help you. And somehow or other, the night after a gig, he woke up in his car with no shoes, no shirt, no wallet.
Oh, that does sound like a blues song.
It does sound like a blues song, doesn't it? But this guy, being a good talker, walked to a gas station, talked him into getting some gas. They gave him some gas. He went home. The wallet was at the bar. The shirt and the shoes, mystery. But the answer to that question is when somebody says, hey, you want to take this after a gig? Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, don't have to live the blues.
And you both have talked about blues a bit just now. So I want to hear about your background, which I know sometimes can be like the question, where are you from, which becomes increasingly complex over time. But can you give listeners a bit into your experiences?
I started playing piano at the age of 7. I, did the traditional took piano lessons. And then around my teen years, I started to get interested in jazz. We had a really good jazz program at our school. That was kind of my introduction to jazz through the jazz band at, jazz ensemble at high school. I got into improvising at the piano on my own and listening to a lot of rock and roll and all kinds of different music, blues, jazz, whatever. I guess by the time I hit, maybe 16 is about the day, about the time I decided I really wanted to pursue music as a career. So I did what I thought was the right thing to do, go to music school and get a degree, because it seemed like a good idea, I couldn't really, there wasn't anything else I really wanted to do with my life. That was at the time. My father wisely insisted I go to a school where I could get like a well-rounded education. And so, as opposed to, because I kind of wanted to go to Berkeley in Boston and that, just do jazz. But he was like, no, let's, so I auditioned at a number of schools. I got accepted to Indiana University for composition. But they said, you have to work on your piano a bit. We'll let you in. You can start taking classes, but we want you to re-audition on piano. So they really held my feet to the fire, made me learn Beethoven and, all the classics and practicing 6-7 hours a day for a while there, just to get in. And finally, after my third audition, they said, "Okay, you're in." And I got, but I was still, at the time, I was playing in bands on the side, and before I graduated, I signed on to work full time with a band that was touring the Midwest, and we played a lot of, it was more or less a cover band, top 40, but we had a couple of originals, but basically top 40 band. Good band though. We had good horn section. We were traveling all over. We were based out of Bloomington, Indiana, but we played Nashville. We played Minneapolis. It was great. Had roadies and everything. It was really fun for about a year, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And my girlfriend at the time, fiance, whatever, she and I both decided to move to Minnesota. Fast forward through a bunch of things. I ended up deciding to go to grad school in California, learned how to code, but I also got a PhD in music at kind of along the way. And I did some work as a computer music gopher. I don't know, computer music. They called it a musical assistant. Assistant musical, was my title.
En France?
Yeah, in Paris. In Paris.
France. That's the best part of the story.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. I lived in France for
Paris, right?
About a year. Mm-hmm. I had to. It was kind of off and on for 3 months on, 3 months off, because they had some visa issues. But yeah, I got to go. As part of a premiere of a brand new piece that there was a composer from Amsterdam. His name is Klas Torstensson. Very he's well known he's huge in the Netherlands, I guess. He's well known over there, but
rock star.
Yeah,
rock star.
Over here, not so much. But he was a great guy, and he would come in. He'd be like, "Okay, Michael, I need." He would have these samples. He would go out and record stuff, and he'd be like, "Okay, I want you to take this sample and morph it into a bell sound," or something like. Or he would, he just had all these. He would record ice cracking on a lake, and he would be like, "Yeah, can you make this, spatialize this, and so it goes around the room?" It was really fun. Just a really.
That's cool stuff.
It was great, and. So it was called IRCAM, the place where I worked. What is it? Institute for Research in Computing and Music is how it translates. And a great place. An incredible. Pierre Boulez, the composer, founded it back in I don't know when, 70s. So it's been there a long time.
Is he the same person as Pierre Boulez?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same guy. The place was incredible, but again, had to make a living, so. Kind of got back into coding, ended up moving here to Raleigh because of a job that I had with the Postal Service, actually the IT department of the Postal Service back in 1998. Oh. And then the .com thing happened, right? And so everybody was telling me, "Oh, go out to the Bay Area, that's where it's all happening, you got to get out there." So I went out there in 2000, and the .com bubble it burst right as soon as I got there. It was like I was on the job, and literally a few weeks later, companies were starting to just implode right and left. Oh, wow. And it was scary. It was kind of a weird time to be there. But as it turned out, I was there. I ended up being there for 6 years. I managed to stick it out, and we did all right. But and I played some music over there and got involved with a few things, but. Nothing. I had young kids. We had 3 very young kids there, and it was a busy time for the family. So we wasn't really doing a whole lot there musically. Came back here. It just after my job ended, they got bought, and I ended up moving back here. I had a great opportunity to come back, and I haven't really looked back since. We moved so many times. I've just finally kind of settled down somewhere. Mm-hmm. And and Raleigh has, in the whole Triangle area, has turned out to be a really great place for music, as it turns out. Sort of surprisingly so. This whole area of North Carolina historically, there's a really rich tradition. Mm-hmm. So many great musicians, are from this area. So,
Billy Strayhorn.
Yeah.
He was from Hillsborough.
Yeah. Even wasn't Monk from around here, I believe. And
Winston.
Yeah, Coltrane.
Winston. Awesome.
Actually, I was playing one night at Seagrace, and some lady came up to me and said, I'm Billy Strayhorn's great niece.
No.
Yeah. And I had played Lush Life that night. And she was like, thank you for playing that song. I love that song. And I was just like, whoa.
You never told me that.
That was a great, it was a great moment. So, I've tried a lot of different things in my music career. I've done a lot of different things. I'm kind of an omnivore when it comes to music. I look at music the way I look at food, which is like, if you just have one kind of food all the time, it's boring, and why not try some other kinds of food? There's so many great kinds of music out there in the world. And I love to combine them and make fusions. That's why I'm a big fusion. I love jazz fusion. Probably if I had to pick one genre, it's probably fusion.
And Hal, you've also had a very varied background, so I'd love to hear specifically the kinds of music you've dabbled in and then you're kind of focused now, or similar to Michael, is it more the diversity of music that kind of defines your work?
Unlike Michael, I've had no formal training in music. What motivated me to play guitar was the fifth and last appearance of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And they were playing I Feel Fine. I'm like, I got to do that. I must have been in like second grade. And I actually carried a shell that looked like a guitar pick in my pocket for 2 years till my hands got big enough and a guitar showed up. And the guitar was my sister's, my older sister Beth, and she didn't want me to play her guitar. There was always a fight about the guitar, but it was hers. So eventually my parents figured out really the correct parental strategy, which is buy a new instrument for the older child and let the younger one have that, So then I had that guitar. The thing that really influenced me was folk rock, the Laurel Canyon sound, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, the Mamas and the Papas. I love vocal harmonies. My first professional gig, paid gig, was when I was 15.
That's young.
Yeah. And we got $15. So, and I was like, I'm never going back. I'm a professional now. But I except for taking a few years off after high school, I was more in the folk singing bag. I had not even played an electric guitar before I went to college, but I was sick of the music scene, the music business.
How come?
Back when I was in high school, if they had multiple bands on the ticket, you had to wait till the end of the night to collect. So if you were the second band, you had to wait 2 hours. Wow. I was like, and then you get a hassle, from the bar owner, and you were a kid. What were you going to do? So I was like, you know what? I mean, it's college. I had a lot going on. I had a sports scholarship. I was in a fraternity. I had a girlfriend. I had a lot going on. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do music for my own enjoyment. I don't really need to get involved in all this funky business. And I ended up getting back into the band scene at my first job in television, where it was a big ad agency, and they had a couple of agency bands. The guy who organized the band had a country gig, and it was very successful in New York. We were one of 2 country bands in New York City, and we played at some great venues. And the telly I have back there, the Telecaster, we wanted a band competition, country music. And then when we moved down here, again, I just did some recording for a few years. I also had kids who were young, but then I got back into bands in 2004. And at that time, there was very little music scene. A lot of the places that are venues now, we played in when they had never had a band before. They'd have to move out some tables, and they were, but no drum kit, Yeah. Like Abbey Road. I mean, we played in Abbey Road. They moved out one of the booths, and the drummer had to use a conga the whole time. And by the end of the show, his fingers were the size of sausages.
Right.
Shout out to my friend Scott Carr. And I've played in just a whole mess of bands, and always been interested in composition. And as a television producer, I've made 500 or more soundtracks at all kinds of great studios, had a chance to work with fabulous musicians and great engineers, And but as a producer, you're not just an observer. The thing you have to develop is your ears, and your ears are the most important thing when you mix. And I've always been interested in technology, so even as a producer, I want to know how things work. I want to be able to do them. I'm in the Directors Guild of America as a first assistant director. I'm also in the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and of course the American Society of Composers and Publishers. So, yeah, I like to study up on stuff and figure it out. I consider listening to music as part of my job. And certainly as a television producer, I mean, I will sit down and listen to music, and it'd be for 20 minutes or a half hour. But I know, for example, that when I'm listening to stock music, I can listen to approximately 2,000 samples in 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I know this because there's 100 per page, and I can do about 20 pages. Yep. And so for you musicians out there, you gotta bury the hook fast.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think in any kind of music, it's the audience really has to know you and trust you and believe in you to listen to a minute of preamble before you get to the song. And you hear that most music on Spotify and all, it's 4 bars and somebody's singing.
Yeah,
maybe
especially
8.
Today. Music is getting shorter and shorter. It's actually gotten to the where a lot of the most popular tunes on Spotify are like a minute long.
A minute?
That's what I've heard.
A minute?
Yeah. I think that's probably more true today than it ever has been. But yeah, maybe it's always been the case.
I think it's always been true. If you listen to pop music from the 50s,
sure,
they're getting to it pretty quick.
Yep.
And the thing is too, for musicians and for artists, don't be discouraged, because when I go looking for something in 2,000 samples of music, I probably already have something in mind. I always tell, students that music carries the emotional content of a movie. Okay. And just by changing the music, you can change the meaning of the scene.
Oh yeah.
So, if I'm looking for music and I look through 2,000 samples, it isn't that 1999 of them suck. It's that it isn't exactly dialing in on the emotion I want to feel. I think we think about that a lot too, and how chords trigger certain emotions, like the crying chord.
Yes. Again, it's that richness that we're looking for. I was thinking about this album that we're about to release. We're calling it Notes from the Suburbs.
Notes from the Suburbs.
And it's a really diverse collection of music, and I'm really proud of it. I think Hal and I think especially, during COVID, of course, when nobody was gigging, I'd come over here about every week or more and try to, work on some new material. It's interesting working with Hal. Has always been, he's very good at, just making sure that the song is well constructed and not too long, not too short, I do
a lot of arrangements.
Yeah.
And I also do a lot of lyric doctoring, because my background is as a writer. So
that's actually, that's been one of the biggest, for me, my biggest weakness is as a lyricist. I'll write a song. It's kind of like, the Beatles used to write songs where Paul McCartney would come up with a melody and he'd just come up with a nonsense lyrics or something, Right. I think yesterday wasn't it Scrambled Eggs?
Scrambled Eggs. Yeah.
Scrambled
a lot of people write songs like that with word substitutions.
Yeah. So I'll have sort of a vague idea of what the song is, and I'll have some weird lyrics, and Hal will be, how about if let's dial this in. Let's, because I think as a filmmaker, you understand it's like you're conveying a message and a certain emotion here, and let's really define that, and let's make sure that we're clear about it. So that really has helped, I think, to focus the songs, and No,
but we both contribute things. Like a lot of times, I'll song doctor the lyrics of an idea that Michael came up with. And a lot of times, he might write a song and I'll be like, well, this is really the best part. We should go out on that.
Yeah.
The lungs of the world are on fire. Right. I was like, oh, that's the best part. Let's go out with that. And I do a lot of the mixing, a lot of the mastering.
Burning Down the Amazon.
Yeah.
That's one of my...
burn down.
See, I always tend to write about either politics. What is it? My things are...
Politics and
love,
unrequited.
Unrequited love.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. I have a thing for that.
And I write observational songs. I just wrote a story for our friend Misty Mayhem, who had worked with Bo Diddley for a number of years as her mentor.
Okay.
And she always tells the story about how she worked with Bo Diddley, but it takes a few minutes for her to spit it out. And so I wrote a song called That's My Song. That's about her relationship with Bo Diddley. But that was one of the few songs where I'm really writing. I wish I could do more of those, that they would come up.
And Michael, what do you mean by politics?
Well,
yeah, Michael, what do you mean by politics?
I mean, there's I don't know if you know that there's this there's this kind of division in our country between the Reds and the Blues, or whatever you want to, right and left, Republicans, Democrats. It's been a big concern of mine. I've lost friends in the last several years, or there are people who I have a hard time, conversing with, just because I can't get out of my head that they voted for somebody, or they had a certain opinion that I think was really harmful or destructive. So yeah, it's disturbing to me. And I wrote this song, "The Elephant in the Room." And it's obviously it's about Trump, but it's more than that. It's it doesn't explicitly mention Trump, because I want it to be more about just, I am a kind of I'm a very open, honest person. I tend to kind of just I like to have the freedom to talk about things and and address the problems that we have, and more directly. And it's like. Yeah, and no one wants to talk about the elephant in the room, right? Because it's scary, and so that's what the song is about. And then I got my friend Greg Geld to come in, play an incredible clarinet solo on that song. So,
incredible,
yeah,
the solo,
perfect,
incredible,
and so
talented,
it was really
so talented,
yeah,
just like flows out of his mouth.
Incredible. So yeah, it was fun to put that together. I had my buddy George Knott came in and played a tuba. Part that really helps.
That's one of the great things about starting a record company, is suddenly people are interested in coming over and playing their instruments.
Well, you get to interface with so much of the scene. I would think you'd have this really great perspective to see who's kind of up and coming and who do you want to work with, and just the kind of talent that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
We have definitely generated a lot of interest, and it's been awesome. We have a fair equity model for musicians here at the record company, which is not unique to us. Many indie record companies do it. It was the way people did things in the old days. But I think, to summarize it, getting $100 for a session is a ripoff to the musician, because you're betting against yourself. If the song makes $1 million, I don't want to be in the position of having to say to someone, but that's the deal you signed. No. So we don't pay session fees. We put everyone on the splits. And if the song does well, buy a new car. And if the song doesn't do well, come back and let's record another song. And there's also, and I think this is a little bit unique to the triangle, the other thing I would always point out is, and we've talked about this a lot, as performers, you play the music and it's pretty great. You stop playing and it's gone. And so making records projects us into the future, so that our work lives on. And the same thing with making music videos. I mean, there are so many artists we wish we could hear, but we can't, because they lived in a time before there was, recording and recorded music, or they were never captured or covered. But I'll say one more thing. Besides the people coming over, we work real hard to make people feel good, to make them understand this is not an exploitive thing. We're all happy to make money, but it's not really what it's about. And so we recorded an artist, a songwriter, about 2 weeks ago, who's getting married.
Oh, cool.
And she was so moved by the record. And we've had that experience a few times. People who've really not been in a recording studio, and it's like they learned to swim, or they were blind and they could suddenly see. It is very moving to show people you can do this. There's not some special class of humans, you know? Mm-hmm. And I always like to point out that indie music is the fastest growing section of music in streaming. Indie music. It's crossed the $1 billion in payouts, but it's growing at like 36% a year.
Oh, wow.
So between, you know, being on an indie label with fair equity payouts. So that's why you see so many major artists re-recording their own tunes because they were paid a buyout. The buyout may seem like a lot of money at the time, but now they're like, wait a minute. And I always use Billy Preston, who played on Let It Be record with the Beatles as an example. He don't get royalties. He got a payout. Seemed like a lot of money at the time.
But not over the span of a career.
Sure, exactly.
Right. So that's what we want to do. And we want to be on as many records as we can, I think, with as many people as we can.
We will make sure to share about how they can get in contact with you both in the description. But is there anything else that either of you would like to share with Six Count? And thanks again for joining us tonight.
The band that Hal and I...
Brilliant pianist.
Yeah. Yes. The band that Hal and I formed is called the Lounge Doctors. We're at loungedoctors.com. And Misty Mayhem, you can find her, M-Y, by the way. It's
Misty and
Misty
the Doctors.
And the Doctors. So
very excited about that band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So lots of cool things happening with the record label, with the music. Just thank you again for having us on. And
thank you so much for doing this, you know, for spending the time to talk to the music community and helping to build the community. And we're really grateful for you to come out here tonight and any way we can help and all that. But rock on.
Well, likewise, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Six Count. I'm Zara Wild. You can let us know what you thought of the episode or recommend a guest by emailing us at sixcountpodcast@gmail.com or by finding us on Twitter or Instagram at sixcountpodcast. If you'd like to support our work in telling the story of jazz in Durham, you can make a gift to the show by following the link in our episode description. Thanks for listening.